Hello from London. If you're coming to visit in the next year or so, there might be one major thing on your mind: how expensive London is. And listen, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's a very expensive city. Apparently, the third most expensive city in the world to live in and the sixth most expensive to visit. So, you gotta prepare for this. But the good thing is there are quite a few ways where you can cut your costs, but also still have a great time while you're here. So we're gonna tell you about how to do that in this video. So let's go. Let's start with the kicker: accommodation. Now, there's not really that much you can do about the fact that your accommodation in London is going to be, relatively speaking, quite expensive. And prices for accommodation in London can really vary depending on many factors, but for a very, very general number, you can expect to be paying about £100 a night for a budget accommodation, $200 to $300 for mid-range, and $400 a night plus for luxury. That being said, I do have a couple of tips for you to help you keep that accommodation cost as low as possible. So you could choose to stay a little bit outside of central London because generally speaking, the hotels will be a little bit more on the affordable side compared to if you get something right smack dab in the middle of central London, the most popular part of the city. Now, we have amazing transport here, so actually even if you stay outside of central, you can usually get around the city pretty easily via the tube or a bus. But you do also want to take into account that you will have some extra travel time depending on what parts of the city that you're trying to go to from your hotel. So just a little Google mapping to see how much transport you'll end up doing. And you should also keep in mind that there will be a little bit of added cost to staying outside of the center for transport, but it's not usually too much. Now, I think the most cost-efficient way to stay in London is by booking into a hostel. Now, if you're not familiar with how a hostel works, you usually will book a bed in a room with other people versus booking an entire room. And if that sounds a little bit odd, well, here's the upside. You can pay dirt cheap prices per night if you do that. Also can be a really fun way to make friends. Hostels are also great if you're in a group of like 4 to 5 people because you can book all of the beds in a room of 4 to 6 beds, and then it just feels like you guys have your own private hotel room, which is quite fun and also way more affordable than actually getting a hotel room. And if you want to know about the hostels that we recommend when you come to London, we have a link to an article that tells you that in the description box of the video. Let's move on to what is probably my favorite topic: food and drink. Now, there's a lot of bad advice out there that tells you if you're eating and drinking in London on a budget that you should go to basically just fast food restaurants and go get cheap meal deals of crappy sandwiches at Tesco, which is a supermarket that's here. And no, we're not doing that. Just because you're on a budget doesn't mean that you have to eat badly. So I'm gonna tell you about some hacks to help you save while you're eating and drinking in London. If you want affordable options in what is usually very expensive central London, then come and eat in Chinatown. There's a whole range of what you can find here in Chinatown, but there's also lots of affordable options. For example, there's a lot of places that you can get street food, or you can stop into one of the famous bakeries in the area. You'll find lots of affordable eats in there, and you can actually try a whole bunch of different ones because everything is so cheap and so yummy. If you're on a budget when visiting London, eating out can really start to add up for you. Especially in the evening, you would probably expect to spend at least £15 per person, including service charge, but definitely not including drinks. But one of the best ways to save money on eating out when you're in London is to go to one of our many amazing food markets and have your meals there. During the day, we have tons that are open, including Borough Market. Just avoid on a weekend because it is actual madness in here. But we also have some covered markets that are open in the evening so you can have dinner at them. For example, we have Seven Dials Market, which is in Covent Garden, and Mercato Metropolitano, which is in Elephant and Castle. That place is massive. There's literally so many options for you to have, and you can expect to spend between like 9 and maybe 12 pounds per person on your meal. So it's a little bit more affordable. Also, a lot of the traditional British foods you can find for pretty affordable around the city still. For example, you can get pie and mash for as cheap as 5 pounds and it's like really filling. Fish and chips you can find for 10 to 11 pounds. And if you go for more snacky options like a Scotch egg, that's literally just a few pounds. And if you want to know about some of the great British traditional dishes and foods you should try when you're in London, we actually have 2 videos that tell you what to try and where to go to try them. So you can click the link in the description box to watch those. But after you finish this video, do not click off yet, please. Thank you. Hold on, stop for a second. You're gonna wanna hear this. We are so happy to say that this video is sponsored by Get Your Guide, which is the best place to book the world's most unforgettable experiences for travelers. They offer over 60,000 experiences in 3,600 destinations worldwide, from tickets to the big attractions to one-of-a-kind local tours run by knowledgeable experts, which of course we love. I love how on their website they have a whole section for experiences that are uniquely London, so you can find things to do that you can't do anywhere else in the world. They also have this handy app where you can book, but also download your tickets and keep them handy instead of having to find a hotel printer or scour your emails. You also get 24/7 support with them, and most experiences have a 24-hour booking cancellation, which means you can cancel up to 24 hours in advance, keeping your trip nice and flexible. Book your tours and experiences in London and around the world with Get Your Guide. Just click the link in the description box of this video to get started. Okay, let's get back to it. Okay, let's talk about activities. Now, everybody has to get here and everybody has to sleep, so obviously you do have to spend money in those categories. But when it comes to activities, we actually can do a lot of fun things without having to completely break the bank. Now, obviously we have so many major famous attractions in the city, but they all come with pretty major price tags as well. But what you can do is you could just do your own walking tour to look at the outsides of these buildings, and then you don't have to shell out anything for tickets to go inside. And if you want a walking route that helps you to do that without having to spend your own time making it, we do that with our London itineraries. So make sure you have a look at those, linked in the description. If you come to London and you want a great viewpoint, totally get it. I love to do that when I travel too. Most tourists think that the place to do that is on the London Eye. And yeah, you get really good views from the London Eye, but if you're on a budget, the 25-pound ticket is probably not gonna be the one. But the good news is we actually have some really great free viewpoints that are just as good or better than the London Eye, in my opinion. For example, you can go to the top of the walkie-talkie building to the Sky Garden. It's quite literally a garden in the sky. It's actually taller than the London Eye, and you get amazing views over the city, plus it's completely free to visit. We are quite lucky here in London that basically all of the major museums here are completely free to visit, and they're also massive, in my opinion, a little bit too big. But you could technically spend an entire day exploring 1 or 2 of these free museums, which is great value. If you have a little bit of money to spend, I do think that a really efficient way to use it is to book a tour. Now, hear me out. Some of the major attractions, if you book a tour guide, you actually get a pretty good deal where you're paying just a little bit more than the ticket to go to the attraction, but included you get a super knowledgeable tour guide and you find out way more than if you had just walked around on your own. I also think food tours are really good value because you, first of all, will be so full after that you will skip at least one meal, so you saved your money in that sense. But it's also the most cost-effective way to be able to try small amounts of a bunch of different types of food instead of having to go to various different restaurants and various different food stalls and having to buy full portions of each of them, which will cost you way more. And of course, the cheapest type of tour you can book is a walking one, which we think is great use of money. Now, if you want some recommendations for tours that are absolutely fantastic in London, of course, we know some really good ones, so we'll leave some links down in the description box to articles that will give you lots of suggestions. We have a pretty good public transportation system here in London. So from the early morning until midnight, you can absolutely avoid ever having to pay for a taxi. Just hop on a bus or a tube or a train instead. And I'm gonna give you a couple of money saving tips for transport to help you stay within your budget. So first off, never ever buy a daily travel card. They are such a ripoff. I don't even know why they sell them, to be honest. But you can pay for public transport with 3 different options. You can do contactless debit or credit, Google Pay or Apple Pay, or you can buy an Oyster card and then you can refill your credit onto there and pay for the tube that way. The first 2 options are, in my opinion, are much easier than getting an Oyster card, but it's up to you. Also, if you have kids with you, kids under 11, they ride all public transportation for free. Just take them through the wide gates when you're going onto the tube and you'll have no problems. And if your kids are between 11 and 15, you could actually get them 50% off tube and bus travel. Just get a young visitor discount applied to an Oyster card, and you can do that at any station and just ask a staff member. It's really easy. Because most of London's airports are not actually in London, sometimes tourists will come unprepared and end up spending a lot of money for their airport transport to their hotel. Luckily, as with anything, there are ways around that and to keep things really cheap, but you just need to plan ahead and know where your options are. And luckily, we have lots of videos and articles that will help you to figure out what your options are depending on what airport that you are flying into and where you're trying to get. So we will leave links to some helpful stuff down in the description box. Why spend £100 on a taxi when you really don't need to? If you want lots more tips for your trip to London, we have hundreds of other videos that you can watch, and you can do so by clicking one of the boxes popping up right around me.